It has been a rough 2 weeks for New Mexico fans as their team have started the season 0-2 following their losses to FCS Northwest aka Montana State, where they were unable to stop the Bobcats from scoring 21 unanswered points to seal the comeback victory, and unable to stop the Arizona offense from putting up 61 points to dominantly win the game. We will be hopping into College Football 25 and taking over the Lobos to try and build this team into a powerhouse dynasty. The Lobos currently compete in the Mountain West Conference with teams such as Colorado State, Fresno State, and Wyoming, while also playing the teams in the Pac-2 since their conference was destroyed by realignment this past offseason. We come in as one of 13 true one-star prestige programs in the game and begin with a team overall of 74. To get things started, we will create the new coach of the Lobos, beginning with the recruiter archetype so we can try and rebuild this roster with some better talent. For the series, we will begin with the default New Mexico playbooks in order to keep things more realistic. But at the end of this season, we may decide to part ways with our coaching staff if things don't go so well. Before we get too far, let's take a step back and see what got us to this point by looking at the historical records of the Lobos over the past 2 decades. We begin in the middle of the Rocky Long era, the most successful head coach in school history who finished his career with 65 wins and 69 losses before resigning. After Coach Long left, there was an unmemorable 3 years of going 1-11 before Coach Bob Davie, a former Notre Dame head coach, got up off his ESPN chair and took a crack at fixing the Lobos. He took the team to a bowl game in 2016, and the team hasn't been back since then, unable to eclipse 4 wins in a season between 2017 and 2023. The team was last coached by Danny Gonzalez, a former UNM player who was let go at the end of last season. Our current coaching staff begins with offensive coordinator Frank Johnson, who runs the pro-style offense. He has a scheme guru archetype and also has motivator unlocked as well. Under the motivator tree, there isn't much that will help us since he doesn't have the tier 3s unlocked. But when we take a look at the scheme guru, we can see what the identity of this offense will be. Our entire offense will be getting some boost to their ratings under the first line of upgrades here, especially the running backs on the team, but with his guru skills, our offense will be less impacted by crowd noise on the road. We will give the opposing defensive line fatigue hits if we run the ball for 4 or more yards, increase catching for our offense on all passes 20 yards or less. Defensively, we have master motivator Freddie Massey, who operates out of the 3-3-5. He has the tier 3 motivator upgrades for the defensive line and linebackers, while also giving our entire defense the ability to stay hot throughout game breaks, and through his master gives us faster recovery time for the whole defense and improves our defensive line and linebackers' ability to stay on the field by giving them boosts to toughness, stamina, and injury. For our head coach's upgrade, we don't have any help with recruiting from our coordinator, so I'm going to focus on larger position groups like O-line and D-line first to build through the trenches and see the potential for more players at a time. For our roster, we'll be limiting ourselves to keep things as realistic as possible, so that means no fake generated players in this first season. After the season, we'll be letting go of anyone that's not actually on the roster, and we'll be starting players who are currently listed as starters by New Mexico. And that all starts with quarterback Devin Dampier, the redshirt freshman quarterback who acted last year as the reserve quarterback and threw for over 500 yards and ran for over 300. Of the quarterbacks in the game, Isaiah Chavez is the number 2 quarterback on the actual roster, and then Justin Holiday is listed as an athlete, so we'll see which one can pull through and win the number 2 job for us. In the running back room, we start with Eli Sanders, the Iowa State transfer, and then after that, it's number 2 by committee with Javen Jacobs and Andrew Henry. For the wide receiver room, we have Luke Wysong, Ryan Davis, Caleb Medford, and Sean Miller, with Javen Jacobs, the running back, getting some reps at slot receiver. In the tight end room, we have Trace Bruckler, and on the actual roster, they have left guard Isaiah Silliman listed as tight end, so we'll use Everett Hunter instead, and Magnum Gears as the third option. The offensive line is a bit funky, so bear with me. At left tackle, we have Jamarquez Bailey, who's not the real starter, but we have him followed up by Travis Gray. At left guard, we have Baraka Beckett, who moved into guard for this season. He is backed up by Vincent Santos. At center, we are playing Mackenzie Agnello, who is starting as Jawan Singletary is currently injured. At right guard, we have Richard Pierce instead of Isaiah Silliman, who is listed as tight end. At right tackle, we have Wallace Unamba, who will slide back over to left tackle once our center recovers and can play. At left end, we have Kyler Drake and Tyler Keeney. At the other end, we have Okiki Olorunfunmi and Antonio Harris Jr. At defensive tackle, they have Bryce Santana listed as a starter, with Devin Brant Epps and Tyler Keeney listed as interchangeable backups. At left outside linebacker / Sam or edge rusher for our team, we have Gabriel Lopez backed up by Moso Tuetele. At middle linebacker, aka Mike, we have Jaden Wilson backed up by Mahala Santorinos, who's not listed as the backup, but we only have 3 available off-ball linebackers, with the other one being Dimitri Johnson, who is playing our buck position and is also backed up by Mahala Santorinos. Another tricky position is the cornerback room, where New Mexico distinguishes them by field and boundary side, where we cannot do that in the game. So we have Noah Pola Gates and Bryson Taylor as our starting outside corners, and Nigel Williams backs both of them up. And in the slot, we have Bobby Arnold III. At safeties, we have Christian Ellis, Derek Moore, and Noah Avenger, while we wait for Tavian Combs to come back from injury. In the game, he's fine, but in real life, he's currently out with an unknown injury. So we'll be bringing him back around the week 5 time frame, just to keep things a little more realistic stat-wise. Our starting kicker is Luke Drzwicki, and our starting punter is Aaron Rodriguez. When it comes to recruiting, we will be implementing some house rules to keep things more difficult and try and keep things more realistic and not get out of hand. The first of our recruiting rules is that we must completely scout every single player before they can sign with us. The second rule is that we can only have 5 high school players that are rated 2 or more stars higher than our school's prestige on the board at a time. If they've signed, they don't count. The next rule is that all players we go after must be in a pipeline state or are listed as a suggested target. And the final rule is about the transfer portal, and for all transfers, they must be a scheme fit and they must project to be a day 1 starter for us. Taking a look at our schedule, we already know the team is 0-2 against FCS Northwest in Arizona. We'll still play the Arizona game, but the rest of the season we'll play as usual, and hopefully we can come out with a few wins, especially as we get into the conference play against teams like Colorado State, Wyoming, and San Diego State. For those of you that want to know what sliders I'll be using, I'll be following the Heisman set of sliders from Matt 10. I'll be keeping up to date on any changes that he makes to his sliders as updates come through, but I'll be making some slight tweaks to them if I notice something while I'm testing or playing, to try and keep things more realistic and to get the sliders as best as I can for my experience. But if you want them for yourself, feel free to slow down the video or check out the set on Operation Sports by looking at Matt 10 College Football 25 sliders, and you'll be able to find them there. For the XB sliders, similarly to the gameplay, they're on Operation Sports. They are titled EA CFB 25 XB sliders for everyone by Funky Corm. They've worked so far for me in my test leagues, so hopefully they stand up to time and last throughout the series. With all of that housekeeping stuff out of the way, I appreciate you all tuning in to the beginning of our new Mexico Dynasty to meet the team and get some more background on the series. We'll be keeping the series going for a while, and I'll do my best to give you all some storylines to follow with the roster while trying to treat this as if it were a real football program, so the realism aspect of this will be very important. I also plan on starting a Madden 25 Dynasty and would love to try and find a way to integrate the 2 universes together, but unfortunately EA didn't add the ability to export CFB 25 draft classes to Madden 25, so I will probably just use the auto-generated draft classes but sprinkle some Lobos in there and hope that in next year's game they add that feature to the game to create a connected universe. Next video, we will attempt to rewrite history and take down Arizona at their home in a rivalry matchup. Hopefully we're able to do better than the Lobos did in real life, but be sure to keep an eye out for that video. See you all next time.